Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Better Events podcast. This is Mary Davidson, one of your co hosts. And in today's episode, we are doing a live mentorship session with me and Logan. And we are going to have a really great example mentorship session and then also share how we have benefited from mentorship over the years. So let's get into it.
Welcome to the Better Events Podcast. Join two event strategists, Logan Clements and Mary Davidson, who believe we can all create, host, and attend better events. In this podcast, you will learn about event strategy and actions that you can use today as an event host, planner, or manager. Hear directly from the people who are creating innovative and inspiring events today and tomorrow, and grow your business along the way. Now, let's get started, and thanks for listening to the Better Events Podcast.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Better Events Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Logan Clements, and I'm joined by fellow co-host Mary Davidson. And this week, we're talking about the M word, mentorship. I'm very excited. I'm glad I got you with that one, Mary. But before we dive into our conversation, we're going to do that conversation starter. You know it. You love it, listeners. Mary, if you could instantly become an expert in any skill, what would it be?
There are a lot that I would love to choose. I feel like I don't have a ton of hard skills. So I'm going to say uh like languages. And specifically, I really want to learn Spanish. Like if I could just really know a language and easily learn other languages, I think that would be really valuable. Communication is like what connects us, obviously. And so I would love that. What about you, Logan? If you could instantly become an expert in any skill, what would it be?
Well, I want to steal your answer, but I didn't think of that one. I think I would say public speaking. I feel like this is something that if you are a good speaker or orator, it would help you with all kinds of things, even just like private conversations, as well as, being persuasive and getting your point across. And so I would love to just naturally, magically be an expert in public speaking. And then my second answer would be yours, Mary, because languages are very helpful.
I love it. Yeah, that's super fun. And we also, before we get into our topic, want to plug the Better Events community. If you haven't heard of it yet, there is information in the show notes. But we invite you to join us as a paid subscriber to come over to Substack and Discord with us and kind of get more involved in that way. We'd love to see you over there. Now, we're going to get into our topic. We like to talk about why we picked this topic. So today we're doing kind of a live mentorship session, and we're going to talk about why mentorship has been important to us. But basically, we're kind of an advocate for it, I would say. We've had good experiences with it ourselves. And while we may not be the experts in mentorship, we have benefited from it. And so in this episode, Logan and I are going to kind of mentor each other a little bit, talk about good experiences that we've had with mentorship. And we would love for you to follow along as you're listening to this and answer these prompts that we're going to get to in a little bit along with us. So kind of take this as your own sesh. We're going to all do it together. And yeah, so let's just get into it. Logan, can you share kind of what your experience has been with mentorship, whether you've been mentored yourself, maybe you've mentored others, just kind of share with us that journey that you've had.
Yeah. I mean, I love mentorship. I think I'm a proud advocate of it. I'm a proud product of what I feel like has been some really good mentorship opportunities that I have both created and or taken advantage of based on the scenarios that I've been in. I feel like from my background in sports, having a coach has always been so helpful, and having a good coach versus a bad coach has had such an impact on my athletic career. And bad is just a generic word, but I would just say, there is a difference between having a great coach and someone who is just kind of okay. And that was something that I realized, having somebody in my corner cheering me on, helping, be that outside perspective on what I was doing, has always been really helpful. And that transition post college, I got really into CrossFit and things, and I loved having somebody else kind of hold me accountable and help maybe call out things, or again, talking in the sports analogy, like physical weaknesses I'm not aware of, but they can notice. And so that's something professionally, I feel like I've always liked the idea of mentors. I think my first experience with mentorship that I can think of right now was a really cool format. So it was called Mentor Walks, and it was for expat women in Shanghai. And it was a super low stakes exposure to mentorship. And Mary, I've been trying to pitch this idea for all kinds of different groups. to try it because it was really cool. And it was the idea is you signed up ahead of time and they recruited like 10 mentors and we would meet in a park and the 10 mentors would kind of present one by one really quickly their name, what they do, and a couple topics they're passionate about. And then we were told to just kind of go pick a mentor. So it was a group of like 50 mentees, 10 mentors, and you would just pick a mentor and you would literally just go on a walk. If it was raining, you could go to a coffee shop and sit, but you would just go on a walk with them in a small group of like four mentees and one mentor. And I just remember being really intimidated at first because I was like, the imposter syndrome and how would I have good questions for these people? And I got so much value out of it, not just from my mentor and their answers, but even hearing what the other mentees were asking about just made me feel a little bit more like, oh, it's not just me. They also have questions about working with people and growing in your career and, all different kinds of things. So that was super like I liked it because it was a group mentality. There was less pressure on me as the mentee to have all the questions. So that was mentor walks. But how about you, Mary? Like, what was your first, how important is mentoring to you and what was your first experience?
Yeah, it's been really valuable to me over time, and I've been mentored a number of different ways. I myself haven't mentored anyone like directly through a mentorship program, but my first one started at my last job that I was employed at before I started my business. That was kind of the first time. And it was something that the leadership of the organization set up for me. They said, like, Mary, you might benefit from this. So we've already identified somebody and you're going to start meeting them once a month. So it was very much like assigned to me. And I was like, okay, I mean, like, sure, sounds good. It would be nice to kind of talk to a third party in general. And that actually proved to be really beneficial for me for some of the things that I was kind of working through there. Um, but it was just funny because it started with an assignment. I wasn't really a choice. But I quickly learned the value of having that third party perspective. I felt like I could talk way more openly about things, more than I felt like I could with my boss or anything like that. And I think that generally is just how it goes. Like, we're kind of just more open with people when they're third party. And but all of my mentors that I've had over the years have had some direct link to the job, the organization, the industry. Like, something has connected them in a way where it truly has been beneficial to me. They kind of understand the insight that I don't have to give them all the background story. They kind of already get it. And that has been, I think, crucial. I also think mentorship is really important because, like, therapy is obviously different than mentorship, but I notice that a lot of times in therapy, I end up talking to my therapist, all about issues that come from running a business and owning a business and things like that. And those are true. And she's helpful with that. But sometimes I'm like, oh man, I really need a mentor probably also to kind of work through some of these um, more like concrete businessy things with me. And so, yeah, that was my first experience. And then from there, I've consistently had a mentor. I was a part of the AFP Association of Fundraising Professionals, and our local chapter had a mentorship program. I signed up for it. Once again, my mentor was in the fundraising community, so she had that insight and was really able to help me. And that was a pretty structured mentorship process. She gave me a bunch of questions to like answer before our next session and all of that. And then I've had a mentor that was a little bit less structured, but still incredibly helpful. When I was starting my business, I was mentored by actually the woman who introduced Logan and I, which is Logan's partner's mom. And she mentored me, and I had a wonderful, wonderful experience with her. She really helped me as I was starting my business, and she has had a lot of wonderful experience. And so it was helpful. She truly helped me during a time when there was a lot of uncertainty. But every time, my point, I guess, is that it was structured differently, but I still found significant value because I was invested in it. And I think that's the key thing, is to find two people who are willing to work together. And now, fast forward, I again have a mentor. I kind of always want one, but you can kind of feel like when you really need one too, I feel like. Um, and it's just been incredibly helpful. And that is what inspired this episode today, is kind of the recent mentor work that I've been doing. So that's my soapbox slogan. Before we continue, here's a word from our sponsors. Richmond, BC is where Canada's iconic coastal lifestyle is infused with Pacific sensibilities, a place that is real, raw, and unvarnished. Less than 25 minutes to downtown Vancouver, Richmond is home to over 20 major hotel brands, most offering free round trip shuttle services to the award winning Vancouver International Airport. Logan and I visited in the spring, and we loved the diverse experiences Richmond offers, from whale watching out of a quaint fishing village called Steveston to the bustle of the largest Asian night market in North America. We were never short on memorable moments. And if that's not enough, significant funding is available for both bid phase and booked event costs. Create your conference on the coast and head to visitrichmondbc.com for more information.
Mentioned a couple, I think just some resources for listeners, because it is, I think mentorship, we're singing its praises. We can hear it so powerful. And yet you might be sitting there being like, Logan and Mary, how do I find a mentor? Because that is also something that like, I just pulled up my wish list. I made some of my goals I had from like 2019. It was like find a mentor in sports and events. I didn't know. I feel like I knew how to get there. I wanted a mentor. Before that though, I want to shout out SCORE. I do actively have, and SCORE is a free service from the Small Business Administration, sba.gov, but you can go to score.org and we're going to link it in the show notes. Those are free mentors. These are people that are essentially kind of certified, checked by the Small Business Association. They're very familiar with, I would say, more like leaning on the legal side of running your own business and some of the admin work. I know, Mary, I think you can probably speak a little on how you leaned on them for some of your like hiring of employees. Like they're very well versed in your state and federal resources. And so I did some one-offs when I first started my business, and then just one-off meetings. And then I've started a relationship the last 4 years. I think I started in 2020 now that I think about it. And I get co-mentored. So it's 2 mentors that I work with, Hal and April, who are amazing. Shout out to them. And I meet with them like once a month, once every 6 weeks, just to kind of share what I'm working on, get their feedback, ask them some questions. And so score.org is a great spot that you as a mentee can go out and like book an appointment, and you can try out different people for who's the right fit. So I would definitely do that. And then my other big mentoring experience is similar to Mary's, was through an association or a group that I was a part of for my industry. So I'm a part of WISE, Women in Sports and Events, and we have a local Seattle chapter here in the Pacific Northwest. They're in a lot of major cities. I will link to that too. They offer a free mentorship program for members. So you do have to join. There's like student membership. I think it's like $40, $100 to be a professional member a year. And when I had that goal, I told you guys in 2019 to find a sports and event mentor, I think in February or January, WISE of 2020, WISE within applications opened up, and Smart Logan applied and like put my name in there, and you just essentially listed out what you were looking for, maybe some samples of challenges you were facing. And I did this before I knew what 2020 would be. And then the program actually it's not really accepted or rejected, but they try to match you with the mentors that they have. So sometimes they don't have someone who fits what you're looking for, but I got matched with our keynote speaker from Better Events Conference last year, Jen Mueller. And it was one of those things that I'd seen her and I knew about her in the sports world, but I got the excuse to be her mentee. It wasn't as structured as what it sounds like, Mary, that you had with like, we didn't have questions. I think we had maybe a couple prompts, but she and I felt like had such a good relationship because I was really, like you said, I was invested, she was invested. But of the two of us, I felt like I had to come prepared for I think we met once every 3 weeks virtually, had phone calls or video calls. I would purposely make sure that I was coming with questions, whether it was a specific question or a specific challenge I was personally facing, or just general questions of getting to know Jen better. I came prepared, so I took the onus off of her to fill the time, and then the conversation would flow where it needed to flow. But I just remember it was such a valuable experience, and I felt I was kind of starstruck probably our first 2 sessions because she's just so cool, and she's a sports reporter, and that's something I always wanted to do. But she's also a business owner, and so she was someone that I leaned on when I had to make a difficult decision to step away from a volunteer organization that was pretty well known, and she was the one that helped me navigate that. She's also the one who helped me navigate not doubling down on getting into wedding planning because of COVID, and there was only weddings and funerals happening. And she's like, Logan, when stuff stops, do you want to still be doing weddings or you want to go back to sports and your other events? So she was a very, very valuable sounding board for me I have Mary, I have other people in my network that I definitely lean on. But it has been fun to have somebody from that professional lens who is that third party. is invested in you, but also is a little more removed, that can kind of give you some of that tough love.
For sure. I like what you were touching on in just, yeah, from my perspective to share a little bit more in that regard too, is like I've talked to some people about and not just in the industry, just professionals in general, and they're like, "You need a mentor. They're just amazing. They're the best." And they are like, "Well, how do I get one?" Like, and Logan gave a bunch of good examples. Some additional things that have worked for me are along with SCORE. SCORE is wonderful, like as Logan said, and it is through the SBA. But the SBA itself, the Small Business Administration, also occasionally, depending on where you live, has their own I don't even know what they call them, like representatives, but it's like their job. I don't know what they're called, but I've met with them specifically as well, and that they're also helpful. So there's just so many different like routes you can go there that are amazing and free. Mentorship is typically free anyway, but um, along with that, I've like handpicked people before because I've thought kind of like it's somebody that I've come across, I've kind of enjoyed watching their journey, I kinda look up to them and I'm like, "Oh, I wanna be like them when I grow up." Those are the types of people that I love to reach out to be my mentor, and sometimes it's come, like we've identified, because of a program, but other times I have just asked someone, "Would you be willing to be my mentor for a year?" So it's like usually I like to kinda commit to doing it for 6 months to a year, so we're both kind of, like, locked in on doing that, like, monthly. And then it also gives them an out, right? After a year, like you can go move on and do something else. And so that's how it's kind of worked for me. And I would definitely encourage you all to try it. I can't stress enough how much value it is to have a third party perspective, somebody who's not your family, who's not necessarily a friend, who's not within your organization, someone else. So try it and let us know if it works for you. But Logan, is there anything else you want to talk about your mentorship journey before we get into some examples of mentoring each other?
Yeah, I think you made a good point there, that like mentor your mentor doesn't have to be a mentor for life. So I think that takes some of the pressure off of it, and that a lot of you can have mentorship in different ways, and there's also like not one slot for a mentor in your life, that you can have multiple different people. Like my SCORE mentors, I think, are super helpful for me in a different way that Jen is, and I still have that mentor. That's a relationship we started in a very structured 1 year program for a year, and I still consider her a mentor now. I think we check in maybe every 2 months. And one of the cool things I will also call out has been what she describes as reverse mentoring. So I feel like I'm getting a lot of information and help from her, but she has also said that as a mentor, she's experienced mentorship from me to her for certain things on the technology side, or just different ways of thinking about things. So it is something that, like, don't feel like you're only taking in that relationship. You can also have the opportunity to give as a mentee. But I do want to make sure whoever you're asking to mentor you, you as the mentee should be driving that relationship and making sure that you're making it worth your mentor's time. Because I know, like, there might be something that feels good about asking someone who's really well connected and really important to be your mentor, but if you don't actually get to know them and they can't make time for you, like, then it's not necessarily a beneficial relationship. So I think, Mary, you've been very intentional with who you go and ask to be your mentor. And that's something for me. I've benefited more from these like structured programs, have helped me kind of break the ice with finding these mentors. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. But I feel like we're very pro mentorship here, and it's never too late to get a mentor. It's also never too late to be a mentor if you are someone who's super experienced in the
Yeah.
event industry. I would
And it's
encourage you to give back and mentor.
definitely. And I feel like you'll know when you're like ready for that because some of my mentors have expressed like I've heard them express in general, like, yeah, I'm kind of trying to like give back a little bit more and I'm interested in talking to people more. And that like clues me and I'm like, you'd be a good mentor. Like, yeah. So definitely. Also there's never a wrong time maybe to end a mentorship. Like if it's not working out for you, that is also totally okay. I think you want your time is valuable, so is the other person's. And so if it isn't working, I think that's also something you is okay. You can go find somebody that will be a better fit for you for sure. So do keep that in mind as well. But Logan, let's get into some examples. So I want to give some kudos to my current mentor, Hillary. Shout out to Hillary, who's been a guest on the podcast before. This is kind of a structure that her and I do together. And so I thought it'd be fun to give you all an example of that today. Logan and I will kind of co mentor each other as we've identified your time that you spend with your mentor can be very different. It can be way more fluid. It doesn't have to be as structured. But this hopefully will help you all as you consider what it could look like. And once again, follow along with us as we answer some of these questions and think of them for yourself as well. So we're just going to go back and forth. We're going to rotate. So Logan, I'm going to ask you first. Can you share some wins that you've had from the prior month?
Yeah. I just wrapped up last month working women's pro softball in Wichita, Kansas. So that was really fun. It is a sport that I'd played, but I had never produced, doing the game presentation for it. So entertaining the fans who chose to come in person. So that was really, I feel like my imposter syndrome always kicks in with some of these projects if it's something I haven't done before, even if I've done the role, but it's a new type of sport or something like that. So I'm very proud of the experience that we gave the fans. And I felt like I quicker than some maybe past projects. I felt like I shed that imposter syndrome a little bit faster and was like, yes, I'm doing what I meant to do. Felt like I was in my element. I had an amazing crew, which really can make or break an event. They were all so much fun to work with. So that's kind of my big win. It was a very all-encompassing 4-week event. So I can't honestly, Mary, my brain space can't think of another one right now. How about you? What's a win or wins that you've had this past month?
Some wins that I've had, I would say, so this is like a slower season for me, and I've expressed that in other episodes. So I would say it's a win that I have been able to take a little bit more time to just chill out. Still working, but just kind of mentally a little more chill. And I have to celebrate that. So that's been a win for me the last month. And also just reflecting on kind of what we did in the spring, like taking the time now to reflect on all of the things that we've accomplished in the events that we were a part of. So maybe that's kind of vague, but I'm going to take it as a win that's been going on the last month.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
I'll kick back to you then. Do you have any goals for the month ahead?
Yes. I really want to start locking in fall events. Some of them are locked in, but this is normally like the time frame that I'm working in. I don't know about you or people listening, but like this is about the time when we start locking in fall events. And so kind of getting more of those secured is the goal moving forward. And also I want to start doing kind of like I try to do a round of sales a few times a year. And so now it's kind of time for that again, just in general, specifically trying to showcase some I guess like enhanced services that we're trying to offer. You know, we've been able to grow the team, which means there's more value that we can bring in certain areas. And so kind of figuring out how to notify people that, oh, we can also start doing this, you know. So kind of trying to launch those new services as well. So I want to lock those in before the craze of fall begins for sure. So those are my goals. What about you, Logan?
And well, if we're co-mentoring, Mary, I'm like, well,
Oh, hey,
what's your
right.
breakdown of how you're going after that? Is it like, do you have like a spreadsheet that you track all this stuff in? Are you reaching out to like only new people or a combo of both to let them know about all this new stuff?
I mean, that's a good question. That's something I definitely need to figure out. I know I want to post it publicly, like on social media. I thought about doing an e-blast because we do have a mailing list that isn't active, but it's sitting there. So I could send an e-blast out with that as well. Um, we have a like team folder in ClickUp where we've kind of put some ideas, but it needs to be organized and there needs to be like a launch plan, I feel like, to make it effective, including reaching out to people who are already our like maybe already our clients or like previous clients and things like that, just to inform them, if nothing else. I've seen someone do this recently through a newsletter, and I actually really liked how they launched and kind of showed their services. Um, and I've seen it on LinkedIn a couple times as well. So anyway, I got to do some research, I guess, and kind of see what other people have done to launch their new
Yeah.
services.
I mean,
It's not too different. It's not like a huge announcement. It's just like,
no. I would
yeah,
also encourage you like put a time limit on the research and then just do it. Like you said,
just do it.
there's no like right or wrong way. I feel like too for you, I love printing myself messages. This has worked the last like 2 years for me, but I had a different podcast, I swear, that I listened to that told me this, but how powerful just this one sentence is to your existing clients of saying, do you know of anyone else who could benefit from my services?
Mhm.
So adding that in your post-event emails, or again, even as your outreach to someone to say, hey, check it in for the fall, but also throwing it out there, just that sentence to like mainly to help nudge folks who probably already would recommend you to folks, but maybe they're just, they're so thinking about their own thing,
Yeah.
that putting that one sentence in of like, you know, reaching out to talk to you about your event, but also if you know of anyone who could benefit from my services, like happy to, for you to make the introduction or let me know and I'm happy to reach out to them. Like
Yeah.
a soft sale.
I love that. You've said that to me before, but I'm actually writing it down now. So this is good.
There we
Thank you,
go.
Logan.
Look at that. I got Mary to write a note.
Woo! Love it. All right, Logan, share with us some of your goals.
You and I are experiencing opposite seasons. So you are in this, I think, an amazing planning like season, and I am in execution season. So for me, for the next month, I am heads down in the Olympics, which is amazing. And my goal for that is to be present. I did that for my Chile gig where I did the Pan American Games, and my goal was just to be present, to soak it in, to enjoy it, not get too far ahead of myself, trying to look ahead for things. So just to be present. And then I have a very tight turnaround between the Olympics and then I'm doing US Open tennis in New York. And like by listeners, like tight turnaround, like it's a 4-week gig. I think I have 5 days and then I have another 3-week gig. So for me, it's going to be being present for the Olympics. And then I'm going to try to save myself from myself for those 5 days. Like I want time off, but I also am going to have to be planning and getting ahead for the US Open. So balancing right now, I'm trying to figure out what of those 5 days I can truly take out of office, not check email, maybe for 3 of them, 3 of the 5. So I'm just trying not to overschedule myself. I have a bad habit when I see availability on my calendar to commit to things. So just like calls and meetings and things. So that's my goal, is to be present for while I'm working the Olympics and then also protect and give myself some recharge time, even though it's way too small of a recharge time, truly. But I'm going to try to see what I can do as recharge time versus like get my life back together and then get on the road again.
Oh, for sure. You have to protect that time because nobody else will. Like, it's got to be you. How do you normally, like, in those 5 days? Obviously, there's some, like you said, prep you're going to have to do to leave again. But, like, what is your definition of unplugging? Like, what does that actually look like to you, ideally?
I mean, it's an out of office mess. I mean, my out of office, I've tried to be truly out of office. I had this in July where I've learned if I prep all my other clients weeks in advance, I've never had an issue with it. So that is my plan. I have my out of office listed in my email signature as well in a more subtle way, to remind people. So right now I have that whole week listed, those 5 days listed. It's like a Monday to a Friday listed as out of the office. But I know I've got some stuff in the fall that's going to need me to, take a call or two. Um, so
But
in
are
my
you, like,
head,
recharging as well? Like, personally, though? Like,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think, well, for me, it's also, fortunately, it's a family vacation as well. So I'm going to be
Oh,
spending time with my family, which is going to be great for me. And luckily it's a beach vacation, which I love swimming and reading. So that's in my head. It's going to be spending time with my family, eating lots of ice cream, reading a book on the beach, swimming, and I'll get to do that for all the 5 days or 4 of the 5 days maybe, but 3 of them I truly want to be out of the office, meaning I don't open my laptop, I'm not
mhm,
answering email, none of it.
good.
But I am thinking I'm going to have 2 days where I'm just back on, because the other thing with my international travel, and you know this, Mary, like time zones are hard. So I have a feeling there's going to be some weird times I'm going to have to take calls while I'm in Paris and being present, but I still have to move the needle on some stuff for the fall. And so yeah, I'm gonna try to figure out if I can keep it to 1 day and then I get 4 days of being out of the office, it would be great. Just
Mhm,
because Paris, I'm gonna be very connected. Tennis, I'm also very connected, like on email, things coming in daily, that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna have ample time to answer everybody's emails. It's more the meetings. Just because when I'm on site, I'm not as available as I would be, when I'm home.
yeah, for sure. Well, definitely encourage you to protect your time and, like, really stick true to being present in the moment. I don't know about you, but, like, our brains are so busy when it comes to events. I feel like there's a million different things we're always thinking about, or even, like, running a business. And the only, like, way I can feel any amount of, like, peace and recovery is by just, like, tuning out all of the details of all that stuff. So, Logan, I'm gonna keep you accountable, okay? On
Thank
those
you.
dates and be like,
And
"Are you
yeah.
reading my text? 'Cause stop." or
Texts are
something.
fine. Emails are no. I don't
Okay,
even
okay.
listeners, like, in my out of office, I feel like growth for me has been, I don't give you a way to contact me. There
Yeah,
is no like, "Oh, I'm not on
you're
email,
just
but
out.
send me a text." No, it's not even. I'm like, those that have my number will text me. Mary, you'll send me probably a WhatsApp about podcast things being like, "It's not urgent, but when you get to it."
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just one that I say I'm out of the office, I'm recharging, and I've never had an issue with it. But this is one I've just learned for myself that when I do these long projects, I need to have almost like a week to recover if I'm doing a multi-week event. And it's not always like recovery meaning completely offline or whatever, but like just super low expectations of what I'm getting done. Maybe doing a couple, 2 hours of work a day, but like my brain will shut down more in the afternoon. And I just am not productive. And I've
Mhm.
learned that about myself. And so it's frustrating with some of these really cool things I'm doing. I don't have the time. Literally, there's no time on the calendar for me to give myself that time. So it's like I'm gonna have to do like micro versions of that. So that's why I think being present in Paris and really feeling like I'm getting into it, I think that'll help me just feel more energized coming out of it. And then counterintuitively, I've also really been leaning into movement and going on walks or working out. And like it's counterintuitive that working my body would make me more energized, but that's just what it is. I feel really good when I work out or go on a walk in the morning before I have a long day on site. And so that's something I established that during my softball time for those 4 weeks I got in really good routine, and I'm going to try to keep that momentum going as a way just to, again, I feel like I get all the benefits, but it makes me feel good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and so what I'll do kind of next in the mentor session with my mentors, talk about current challenges, and we'll normally have a few that we hope to get to during the time that we're together. For the time today for the podcast, we'll just do like a really quick, like a little power session as an example. Of we've identified some of them by the goals. It's come out clearly. But Logan, like right now at this moment, what you're experiencing, can you share one current challenge that you're having?
I mean, I feel like I'm so busy right now with these events that I have yet to, I guess I have one challenge, and it's something that I would bring up to my mentor, probably a couple of people to workshop, is the way that I'm balancing. And Mary, you have employees, so I guess you're a good person to ask this question to. Is I revisited the profit first method for how I manage my finances because I'm having such a had a busy spring into a busy summer. Fall, I'm trying to just be more protective of my time, and so that just means I'll probably have less revenue coming in. So I want to make the revenue I'm making now spread out more. And so I'm currently holding more cash in my bank accounts than I normally would or I have in the past. And so part of me has debated, do I need to move some of that money into like one of those high yield savings accounts because it's going to sit there not for years, but for months, until I have a slow month to be like, should I move that? Because I'm like, it's not going to make what it's making sitting in the current account. Same thing for my taxes. I know that was a piece of advice I got once, and then I've kept it simple and kept things together just for myself. But now I'm sitting here going, holding more cash than I normally do. Should I make it work for me, even if it complicates my systems?
Ooh, that's a good question. I am not a financial advisor, so we'll see. I have a ton of cash that sits as well because I'm trying to cover, salaries and I want that to be there, but not a ton. That sounds like a weird thing to
No,
say,
but
but there's
more than maybe more than you did
yeah,
when you were an individual. Let's say
yeah.
that.
It's sitting there for a purpose, but you're right. There isn't really a return that it's getting for sure. I don't know. My dad would love to answer this question for you, let me tell you. But he would tell me to just make sure whatever if you do move it somewhere is that it is accessible when you need it, right? Because that's kind of the reason we have it. You wouldn't want to move it over to like an investment fund necessarily if it's hard to take it out. But like you said, there are high yield savings accounts, and that's easy to transfer between accounts. So to me, it sort of seems like it doesn't matter as long as you feel like your money is safe and like transferable.
Yeah.
Um, and what's the return? Like, is it truly worth it? And some of them are for sure.
I know. It was like interest rates. I was listening to a finance podcast because I'm also not a financial professional, but I'm also a big fan of like, let things do the work for me. And it was just a realization that, and listeners, I'm saying I revisited the profit first method because profit first is all percentages. And so I would pay myself a percentage of what I made in. And then I was talking with Shannon Doa, a friend of the pod here, on Mary's lovely Event Pros on the Go retreat. And as we floated in the ocean, and she was like, that's weird. You should be paying yourself the same thing every time. And I'm like, no, no, no. It's a percentage a thing. So I would have big months and then I'd have small months. she's like, maybe you should revisit a chapter or two, because I'm pretty sure it's meant to be you pay yourself consistently no matter your cash flow. And so I did revisit it. Thank you, Shenandoah. And that is a point that you pick a number and that's what you pay yourself every 2 weeks or, twice a month. And so then that's led me to have some like extra cash on hand, which I now, looking ahead in my projections, know is going to be what I pay myself later in the fall when I'm purposely not having as much revenue coming in. So then, yes, I'm carrying a balance. It's a good problem to have. This is a good challenge, Mary. So thank you for your take.
Yeah, that is a good challenge. I would say one of mine that I have been struggling with is that I don't have a job description. And I might as well because, like, Logan's laughing at me. Everyone on my team has a job description, but I don't. I have FOMO and I feel like I need one. But also, it's not just FOMO, really. It's like I am at a point where I've mentioned this before. I need to firm down what I should be spending my time on based on how everything else is now being divided. It's something we've been getting used to. It's been a change. And so now that we've kind of established this new cadence of things, what do I need to be doing? And I want it written down in a job descriptions to hold myself accountable and also to have everyone else understand what everyone is doing, right? And so obviously I'm responsible for growing the business and things like that. And so I have made myself one, and my mentor is actually like helping me go through it and identify. But through making it, I have seen that I kind of layered my priorities on how I'm spending my time. And really it's events because those are what bring in the money. And then it's the team because obviously that's extremely important. And then lastly, it's the business because that's what time I have left. And so she's helping me like reprioritize and all of those things. So Logan, my question to you is how should I be spending my time given the team and work dynamic that I have in business?
Ooh, great question. I was about to say, I'm glad to know you're leaning on your mentor, because I was about to be like, ask Hillary for her job description and
Yeah.
then use that as a jumping off point for her. Because again, we all know it's hard having a blank page in front of you. So that's so cool. I was cracking myself up, Mary, because I'm like, I don't have a job description. I don't even know if I want to write myself a job description because I think I
It'll
would be
change every
terrified.
day.
The
Yeah.
last time I did it was when I was leaving my full-time job, and I put it all on paper. And when I handed it over, somebody looked at me and was like, I think this is 3 people. I was like, nope, that was everything I was doing. So,
Oh gosh.
but yeah, how you spend your time. I mean, I think it's important. I'm glad you're going through it with a mentor, because I think some of it, I don't think I can give you an answer. And this is where I get in. I mean, I love mentorship, but there is times, and poor Jen gets this, that I'm like, Jen, I just want you or someone to tell me what to do. And she's like, I can't. And I was like, I know. There's certain things when I've had 2 opportunities in the air, I'm like, I just want the universe to be like, this is the one. And there is no way to do that. You personally have to do it. So I feel like it's just more, I'm very like heart driven of the sense of like, what are you passionate about? Because I would
Mhm.
challenge, like, if you're passionate about the event side of things, I wouldn't take that away just because you're the big, awesome boss and you have to do these other things. But like figuring out what that balance looks like, because I'm also like, personally, I don't like sales. So if you told me that a majority of my job description is now sales and business development, I wouldn't be as happy as doing
Mhm.
more events. But that's me. So I think, I don't know. I'll let you react to that first before I continue.
No, I think that's helpful. That's actually kind of something that she was getting at too, is just like, when it comes down to it, we're choosing what we're doing, right? So yeah, what do I want to spend my time on? Like,
Yeah. And like,
what does it look like? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and there's something very powerful in saying no. This is something you and I have definitely heard. It's been
Mhm.
hard to, we're both people pleasing is our tendency, but like there is a power in saying no. And I was just texting with another business owner yesterday who's stopping something that was successful financially, people liked, but she like started dreading doing it. And I just want to read the text I sent, because I was like, there's it's totally okay to not do something purely because you don't like doing it. Even if you would be good at it and people find value from it, you are more important.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah,
That's like
I
a
know.
write that down and put it on your wall quote.
Spitting some truth here.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't take credit. Again, I've absorbed this from other people and some of the stuff I'm consuming, but just there is like, when you see someone, and it's easier to give that advice to others than to put it into practice yourself. Obviously, that's just unfortunately the nature of a lot of people. But there is such a powerful thing in saying no or stopping something or not doing something. So I think I would have that lens when you look at your list, or at least, put a timer on and spend 20 minutes of it, of like, what don't you like? And I know you've hired people to take on some of those things that you're not, loving as much. Um, but yeah, there is some power in saying no to things, because I also know you have a million business ideas, and that's what I see you light up about. So like, that's the fun side. Events is fun. Okay, what about some of this other? And you care passionately about your team, so like, that's fun. Like,
Yeah.
it's just kind of figuring out that balance. Not saying you can have fun 100% of the time, but just I would hate to see
It
you
should be a
flip
little
flop
fun.
that and make it be 70% of stuff you're not actually super excited about.
Yeah. I think that's good advice. That's a great reminder for sure. Because there's like a feeling of, obligation in a way, but also like you just mentioned, all this all started from excitement. So we got to keep that because that's really what's
Yeah.
going to bring the energy. So I love that. And I would say overall, like things like this, to me, just hearing you give this advice to me, Logan, has been helpful. And so, once again, it makes me feel like mentorship is really valuable. Imagine doing this once a month with somebody. Like, it's only going to help, or at least open your brain to think of something new that you wouldn't get to on your own. So,
And we
any
haven't
final thoughts? Yeah,
Yeah,
Logan.
we didn't even touch on it, but like peer-to-peer mentoring is also a thing. So like Mary
Yeah.
and I think a lot of what we offer on this podcast is peer-to-peer mentoring. I mean, we don't know how many years you've been in the business, if you're new, if you've been with us forever. So, it could be mentorship to you, it could be peer-to-peer, but there is value in it. I just think I would always be hesitant to offer advice, and I've been trying to be better at asking. So like in this episode, Mary and I knew explicitly we were coming with a challenge. We wanted people's feedback, but my instinct is always to problem solve and to offer feedback. And I have learned that not everybody wants. Some people just want to vent. And so that is a self-awareness that I'm constantly doing for myself, of asking for what I need. When I tell people, I'm like, I just need to vent. This has been a tough day. I had a tough situation. I just want to vent. I don't need solutions. And then I have others where I'm like, I want like, what would you do? What would be your take? And I take everything with a grain of salt. So that would be what I think I'd leave you with, is mentorship's a great, I have an issue, I would like some feedback, but also be aware that it's also okay to use your mentorship just to vent. If you're just trying to get it off your chest and hear somebody, especially a solo, like business owners, you're by yourself as the boss. Solo business owners, you're by yourself as the boss and the employee. So it just helps you feel less alone. How about you, Mary? Final thoughts on mentorship.
I mean, just what you were kind of getting at. Unsolicited advice is not mentorship. So
Yeah.
I'll just leave it there.
Snaps.
Yep. Awesome. Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of our episode. So thank you for running through this with us. And Logan has our bonus tip today.
Yes, this bonus tip is in the AV production vein. And this is just, if you're an event planner or an event host organizer, make sure you start thinking about your event recordings during your pre-planning process. This means, do you want to record your event? Do you want the program feed, meaning what goes on the screens, to be what's in your recording? Or do you want all of the individual cameras you have in the room to be recording their own individual feeds? This is something, time and time again, I went on a rant with another show caller and producer that our clients sometimes forget about until like 2 weeks before, or the week of, or unfortunately the day before. I've had that happen. They're like, oh yeah, we wanted to record. It's like, okay, that's extra equipment. That's like, it was added budget implications. And it's just something that no matter what you're doing with your recording, it's probably going to impact your budget. So if you have that in your head as something that is brought in your RFP, your request for proposal, or your early conversations with your production partner, you're all going to be set up for success, and there won't be any last minute surprises.
I love it. Thanks so much, Logan, for the great bonus tip. And thank you, everyone, for listening to another week of the Better Events podcast. Don't forget to check out our private community with information in the show notes. Don't forget to save the date for our Better Events conference, December 18th and 19th. And you can also email us anytime for questions, comments at bettereventspod@gmail.com. And thanks so much for listening to another week of the podcast. We will see you all again next Wednesday.